All right.
One, go.
Welcome to Voices of Change with Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. I'm Aisha Richardson, and we've taken a little hiatus. The COVID has impacted all of our work, and we're excited to be back. And I have a new addition to my family. I have a black cat. His name is Loki. So if you hear anything in the background, that's Loki playing with his toys.
Yeah.
Addition to Ginger, who folks who follow us know, Ginger is my peekapoo. Yeah, Loki is he's pretty mischievous. It's good to be back. It's good to be talking to you, Leslie. Hope everything's well with you and your
Well,
family.
Aisha, it's great to see you again. Happy holidays. It's been kind of quiet, because of all this COVID pandemic. Everything just seems very quiet and low key. But I'm
Yeah,
glad we're doing this today. I'm glad we're
yeah,
doing this
too.
show today. We haven't done it in quite some time.
Yeah. We
I
have.
have mentioned here previously in two episodes that we've had in the Republican Zone and even in the show of the Roundtable. Our condolences to your family. A great loss for the city, for the fun, for the uptown, your mother, so young. And, so it's heartfelt. And our condolences from Ursula to your family. It's a great loss for the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, my mom passed away on November the 2nd, and so it's still very fresh. It's
Yeah.
still very fresh for me and for my siblings and for her siblings and for the broader community. It was unexpected, but even though she did not pass from COVID. I say it was COVID related because she
Yeah.
missed doctor's appointments. She was afraid to go into the hospital. When the pandemic first started in March, all of the medical appointments ceased, and so that lack of access to medical care, to quality medical care, and the disproportionate amounts of Latina and African American women and men who are affected by lack of access to quality health care is the reason why so many of our folks have been dying from COVID and in the nursing homes.
Right.
So we are disproportionately affected. We have this health disparity that is going on, and I'm glad that we have this new administration that's coming in because they have a health disparities task force. The
Yeah.
governor put forward a health. The governor of Pennsylvania put forward a health disparities task force. I don't know what the results were. I'd like to see what the results were,
Right.
but
And,
but
and, and precisely, this is a good segue.
yeah.
Situation of your mom, possibly, had some respiratory issues related to
Mm.
COVID, and she went into respiratory distress. And so, talking about that, it's a good segue, uh, and we can talk about this. Our title today is A Year in Review of everything that
Mhm.
has happened within 1 year, even with VOC, Voices of Change,
Yeah,
things that we have discussed here. And so, yeah, we're looking back, but also looking towards the future. And hopefully, 2021 is going to be a different perspective for all of us, Aisha. I think
exactly.
this has been lesson learned for everyone living in this country, including us, including this show.
Exactly. So my mom went into respiratory distress, but she actually, it was heart disease. It was actually heart disease. But like I was saying, she was still afraid to go to the hospital. She was afraid that she would, catch COVID. And so even though her passing away wasn't strictly from COVID, say it was still COVID related
Right.
because of the restrictions of having to go to the doctors and her fear.
Right.
Pennsylvania has had several thousand cases of COVID. Philadelphia has had several thousand cases of COVID. I believe 2,300 deaths in Philadelphia alone. And
Amazing.
so we one of the things that we know that is going on is that disproportionately African American and Latinos are dying at higher rates from COVID in nursing homes. And so this vaccine is really important because, you know, the state is going to be rolling out their plan.
Right.
Philadelphia has a carve out. Philadelphia applied for the federal money themselves, and so they're rolling out their own plan for the vaccines. And I would encourage everyone that has a something that would cause them to get COVID at a faster rate, heart disease or diabetes or respiratory asthma, to get the vaccine, whether you're young or whether you're old. And particularly if you're older and you're predisposed to COVID, getting the vaccine is so important. And even though the vaccine rolled out pretty quickly, this kind of vaccine, it's an RNA, it's ribonucleic acid. It's based on DNA, but it's been this RNA type of vaccine has been worked on for 15 years. So for 15 years, it's been done research. So the kind of disease that COVID is, this vaccine is particularly effective for. So
what is it, 90% or 95%
exactly
effective rate?
Yeah, so we really do have to encourage our folks to get the vaccine. And Leslie, I really think that USLA should be talking about this more frequently, because we have folks who have, you know, in our communities who've been previously experimented on. You know, we have women from Puerto Rico that were given forced sterilizations.
That's right.
We have the Tuskegee experiment where people were not treated for syphilis. So we have a lot of mistrust from traditional medicine. However, we are being impacted by this new new disease more detrimentally. And so I don't want anybody to go through what my family went through with losing someone who is so integral like that, but from something that now is preventable.
Yeah.
So
and we're gonna, and Aisha, we're gonna be ramping this conversation up.
Great.
In 2021. Here at USALA, we're ramping this up. I mean, it's important, especially for Black and Brown communities where we have high rates of the COVID.
Exactly.
And promoting, getting the vaccine is going to be so detrimental
right.
to stabilizing not only here in Philadelphia, but across this country.
Exactly. So, so while we are advocating, so one of my friends called this year a year of tears. Just a year of tears, so a year of just mourning, and not just mourning death, but mourning our lifestyle, because our lifestyle will never be the same. The COVID has mutated now. There are new strains of it. So this issue of social distancing, this issue of wearing the masks, I think is going to be something that's going to be part of our daily lives, and we can't become complacent.
Yeah, take that lightly, and become
exactly.
complacent, as you just mentioned. One of the things, transitioning here for a minute, on the topic of COVID-19, there's this relief bill that was agreed upon by Congress and even the Senate, negotiated by the four powers of government, which is the Senate and the Congress: Mitch McConnell, McCarthy, Pelosi, and Schumer. Those are the four wings of power in government in Washington, D.C. They negotiated this bill. President Trump knew about these negotiations.
Exactly.
In fact, he was the one who agreed to certain language in the bill. Now, when the bill went up for signature for him to sign it, he is blatantly refusing to sign. Now, I'm going to say this to you, Aisha. I mean, people are hurting all over this country. I think last week, almost 1 million people, again, are filing for unemployment because they don't have income. So I'm going to be honest with you, Aisha, and this might sound kind of crazy, but I agree with President Trump. $600 per family is not enough. When people are suffering all over this. Now, I understand that we need the relief for the rental assistance. We need the relief for the small businesses. We need the relief for the unemployment. That is all on the table. But if you're going to give checks $1,800 to immigrants that are here in this country and only give $600 to people, that disparity there causes some concern to me. And you know, for him fighting for $2,000, I don't think that's far-fetched. I think if we can get in debt and spending on other things that are not beneficial to the well-being of this country and to the people, then $2,000 is not a hard ask to do from Congress. What say you?
Well, feels like I agree with you. I agree that the figure should have been it should have been more. However, the other part of me feels like it is the height of insensitivity to be golfing while you have shut the government down. And that I think that part of the issue is that he knew what the negotiations were, and he should have at the front end insisted that McConnell and the folks in the Republican side advocate for that more money. So part of me feels like it's disingenuous for him to ask for something that he knew he wasn't going to be able to get, number one. And number two, that I also think that he's punishing the American people, because it's not just the $600 in stimulus money. It's also the unemployment extensions, and it's also just funding the rest of the federal government. Yeah. So that means that federal employees are not going to get their checks on time.
Yeah,
so,
well, it expires on Monday. So if there's not a bill that's signed, all these federal government jobs are going to go on furlough, and people are going to have to go because, right.
So I feel like, that, he touted himself as a great negotiator, and yet, he's had so many people that he has, that have been in his administration that have been corrupt, that have been, just out for themselves. So, it just seems like it's just the same thing over and over again, that he's really punishing the American people because they didn't vote for him. And right. So this is his way of holding us hostage because he's no longer in power. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree that, I think that he should have been a stronger negotiator and negotiated on the front end instead of holding us hostage on the back end, because all of the things that he has done has held us hostage. So I'm looking forward to this new administration, because I think that they at least, will deal with us and with policy more, not about what benefits them, but what benefits us. Right. So this is the, him holding up this stimulus package and then going golfing is just, it just doesn't look good. I mean, the optics are not good.
It doesn't look good for him.
No, it doesn't look good that he's on vacation, that he's still, putting forward undemocratic tweets about how, this was not and trying to get the caucuses that he controls to not certify the election on January 6th, because when you start talking about not certifying one election, then you're talking about not certifying everybody's election.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, and the push that was there, even by the Republican Party, to really disenfranchise millions of people that voted in this country, that legally casted their vote. I was listening and reading the other day, Aisha, where Dominion, which is the company that manages the voting machines, they're now suing. The owners are suing the government, Donald Trump and all his allies, right, for defamation of character.
Exactly.
These individuals are receiving death threats.
Exactly.
Not too long ago, in the news, you had an ex-police officer threatening a voter, claiming voter fraud. I mean, this is loony cuckoo stuff.
It is.
Stuff that is just unreal and that we're experiencing. But you know what? 50% of this country believe in that kind of rhetoric and that craziness is just unreal.
And you just saw last night there was an explosion in downtown Nashville.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
Downtown Nashville. And it reminds me of the Oklahoma City bombing, you know, where you have these homegrown folks who are, I mean, I don't know, I can't say what it is, but I mean, definitely it is terrorism, whether it's homegrown or not. And the other thing is, this happened on the Trump watch. This happened on Trump watch. So you have the, you know, like, that is a lack of leadership. When you are defunding your FBI, when you don't have people in power, or you're not putting filling those seats, right? You don't have a attorney general anymore. Barr left.
Well, he resigned.
He resigned
because Trump wanted to force him to say there was fraud in this election. I mean, this is crazy.
And you have what is it, the civil servants, you know, civil servants whose jobs it is to listen to chatter, whose jobs it is to infiltrate, you know, and you don't want to call entities like the Proud Boys a extremist organization or a white power organization, and you're not doing the surveillance that's needed to look at where people are to save lives, because we don't know how many lives have been saved because, you know, FBI folks get tips and they're infiltrating, law enforcement is infiltrating some of these groups. But this is a lack of leadership. Downtown Nashville, a tourism area.
And the irony of all of this is that the van that they're now investigating, that was part of this bombing, the van pre-announced that there was going to be a bomb and explosion for people to get out. It reminds me of the Unibomber. Remember that? The Unibomber wanted to, like a hero, the hero bomber, if you will.
Right, and it was targeted at first responders. It was targeted at our firefighters and our police who run towards danger. Right. You know, like I think that you know, this is, it just feels a little bit like chaos at the end of a failed administration. You know, you can't get a stimulus. You know, you have a stimulus bill, you don't want to sign it. You have your attorney general resigning before the end of your administration. You know, you have your administration in chaos. You have COVID rampant in your White House. You know, like, you have your personal lawyer that has COVID. I mean, I just feel like, you know, that this whole situation has been handled so poorly. And then to blame the previous administration for you know, you came in with so much goodwill. You came in with an economy on the up. And now you're going to leave. And I'm going to tell you something, Leslie, that at the end of this quarter, when the numbers come through, it's going to cause so much downturn in the stock market. When those numbers come through of the businesses that are closing, of the people that have been laid off, we're going to have to do another stimulus bill. We're going to have to do something else to be able to save our country, because this lack of leadership and really, it's just this impotence, just complete and total impotence. The only thing that this administration has been focusing on is themselves. Only thing.
Remember, Aisha, that we're dealing with a man who's not, in my view, and what I've seen in the 4 years, he's not mentally sound. He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to anyone. He only, you know, he shoots from the hip, and everything is what he feels is right to him. And if it's not in conformance to what he believes, then he lashes out. And even to the point of firing people that are not loyalists to him, or they're not loyal to his principles and to his ideology, because really, this is an ideology that he has. And that ideology that he has in his head, either you agree with it, and if you don't agree with it, then you're my enemy. And this is how he views this. You're the enemy of the people. That's what he calls it. But let's talk a little bit about you know, the incoming administration.
Sure.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they're going to have an incredible challenge to put things back to normal again. It's going to take time. It's going to take healing. It's going to take compassion to get things where we were at 8 years ago.
Right.
Because they're inheriting several things at the same time: a pandemic, a depression, an economic depression. They're dealing with a host of things at the same time. How do you think that's going to work out? How do you think that's going to pan out?
Well, I think the first is making sure that the departments are staffed up, because one of the things that the Trump administration failed to do was to adequately staff the different federal departments. So I think that that's going to be a really Herculean task to make sure that they have qualified people, not cronies, right? Qualified people in these roles and in these responsibilities, and that I think is the Herculean task, especially at a time when we are going to be going into I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't. Well, we are rationing. I mean, when was the last time you were in a store and they said limit one?
Yeah.
Limit two. Like we are effectively, rationing. And so I think that we're going to be going into a period of austerity.
Austerity.
I mean,
yeah.
we are consumer. Our economy is consumer driven. It is. We are not the economy that makes the things. We are not a manufacturing economy anymore.
Right.
We are a consumer economy.
Absolutely.
And so these stimulus bills have been propped up because it's propping up our consumer economy.
Yeah.
But
even though we're in debt because of it, but it is. Yeah.
But right. But I think that we are going to have to go into a period of austerity, and that is something that people are afraid of, because people don't want to be told, I can't buy that $10,000 bicycle, or I can't buy that, I can't buy that $10,000. Like, nobody wants to be told that. But unfortunately, unless we start looking at how we spend and how we save, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And
we are.
I think we already are in a lot of trouble, but it's being hidden from us. Because we're a consumer economy, but we also are a media economy too. And all of that talk about fake news with Trump was really about masking. It's propaganda. It's trying to reinforce that what is happening that we should believe what is really happening, and it's really setting up the American people to not believe what the real numbers are.
Right.
The real numbers are going to show that we're going to have some problems.
Yeah.
And so but the thing is that when we unite, when we have a uniter and not a divider, we're able to pull ourselves up and to be able to transform ourselves and transform our country. And so the thing that I do like about the Biden-Harris administration is the empathy and the compassion, and the fact that I've never seen a news conference of the president-elect. Like, when was the last time you saw a president-elect news conference? But Biden has been doing that. He's been very presidential.
Yeah.
Even before he took office. And I think that was strategic. Number one, to convince the rest of the American people who didn't vote for him that he is worthy of their vote, and that he is going to be the commander in chief, and that he is somebody that people can trust and follow. That's the one thing. The second thing is that the Trump administration, this is the only transition that has not provided information and access to information of an incoming administration, because they've been fighting so hard against the loss. Yeah. So I think that the challenges for this incoming administration include A, staffing up, B, rolling out a plan that will help us get back on our feet, because we are not okay.
Well,
We are
you're
not.
listening to Voices of Change on USALA Radio with your host, Leslie Acosta and Aisha Richardson. We're talking, we're doing a review of the past year, what's happened in this country, what's happening locally, the show that we've had almost for a year now. Aisha, let's talk about the pardons that President Trump has made in the last 2 weeks, and more are coming.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about criminal justice reform, right? You have a lot of people in our prison system, and let's talk about white collar crime folks who I would say, we need to revisit this, because there's a lot of white collar crime for people, they incarcerate people that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And for whatever the reasons, yet you have President Donald Trump is pardoning people that have committed, according to media outlet, egregious crimes. You have Stone. You have this other loony now, the one that was pardoned that lied to the FBI, the general, Flynn, talking about activating martial law for Donald Trump. You have the father of Jared Kushner, who was pardoned. You have the guy that was in the Russia investigation, that also was pardoned by Trump. So on one hand, you have the most corrupt, I would say, presidency in the history of this country. He's using his pardoning power to pardon all of these people. What about the other folks, right? The other little folks that probably don't have those types of crimes. How do we get a pardon? How those folks get a pardon?
And I think that one of the things with the Obama administration is that the Obama administration used pardons strategically. They also vetted their pardons through they had a pardon committee that vetted those pardons. And so
there's no committee here. That stuff is filtered right to Donald Trump. Yeah.
And the thing is that when Donald Trump came in, the first thing he said was, "I alone can save the American people. I alone," which told you he would make decisions on his own. Right. The thing that is so it's mind blowing when you think about Charles Kushner and the pardon for Jared Kushner's father, Ivanka Trump's father-in-law. He videotaped his sister's husband with a prostitute because they were testifying against him for witness intimidation.
Yeah.
He sent the video to his sister. Who does that?
And Christie, and Governor Christie was the one who prosecuted that case.
Right. Which was why when the Trump administration came in and Christie was trying to get a job with them, did he really think it's gonna work there?
Yeah, it does.
You really think you're gonna work with the man whose father you put away? Really? I mean, there's politics and strange bedfellows, right? We know that.
I don't know.
But hey, no. There's some things that are just like, really? Did you really think that was going to happen? I mean, it was embarrassing. It was I was embarrassed for Chris Christie. Yeah. So and just like the cast of characters, I tell you, this could be like some kind of like miniseries. Because the cast of characters and the things that they have done have been bizarre. Unbelievable. So
we gotta fight to get those types of pardons, Aisha, because if they can get those pardons, man, I mean, it has. I believe in fairness. It's not fair to the little guy that is not connected like that. Yeah.
No, it's not fair, and the fact that he pardoned Manafort and Stone.
Manafort, that's right, yeah.
Right, and all these folks who were like millions of tax dollars were spent on investigating these folks, and you know, and they legitimately were doing some really hinky stuff.
Yeah.
So it is like this whole pardon process has been a process of one, just the
Oh,
mind.
and an abuse of power too. A
Exactly.
huge abuse of
Exactly.
power. Let me ask you this
Exactly.
question, Aisha. How do you see the Biden Kamala Harris administration when it comes to criminal justice reform? What's your perception of how they're going to handle that? And make it more effective and efficient, more cost effective and efficient.
Well, you know, I mean, I think for me, it's hard to tell right now. It depends on who their attorney general is. It depends on who they have in charge of the FBI. I mean, I think that when you put people in that have a foundation in criminal justice reform, then you can get stuff done. The one thing I do like about Kamala Harris is that she knows the criminal justice system, and
She does.
each time she's moved up in a position, she's done stuff to impact the criminal justice system in ways that make it more fair, more balanced. Because you know, as a person who I knew once said, it's not the justice that you deserve, it's the justice that you can afford.
Yeah.
It's the justice you could pay for. It's always the justice that you could pay for. If you don't have a good lawyer, if you don't have the resources
And
to
connected, and you're not connected.
you're not connected, then you're going to be victimized by the criminal justice system if you don't have advocates who advocate for you. So
I,
that
I just think, Aisha, sorry for interjecting there. I just think that our prison system has become an economic engine for politicians to patronage jobs. You know, there's counties, and you know this, even here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we have
yeah
26 of them. You have 17 of these prisons that sit in Republican districts.
yeah
We cannot use criminal justice, or we cannot use that aspect of it to enhance someone's political career, to
exactly
make it a sole focus of being an economic engine. I mean, it's wrong, and it's being done off the backs of poor people, black and brown people, if you will, and it's wrong. And I hopefully, my hopes is that once they come into office, they can look at all these things and say, definitely we have to, we have to, reform this some way, somehow. We have to reform our criminal justice system, and it cannot be ballooned to what is now 2.3 million people incarcerated in this country. It's ridiculous.
yeah I mean, I recently that the state did not spend all of the mortgage relief money that came through the stimulus package, and
Uh-huh.
that's being redirected to the Department of Corrections. So I'm kind of questioning. Well, we know people are in crisis with
Yeah.
their rent and their mortgages. How, and they're not able. So there's thousands of people that have not been able to access unemployment or the pandemic pandemic unemployment assistance, the PUA. So how is it that you took resources that were for working folks, middle class, the working poor, and now are transferring it to Department of Corrections? And what's up with that? Like,
Well, let me say this to you, Aisha. And I remember, you and I, when I was in office, that we requested information on how much money was being made on commissary and the phone calls. Remember that?
yeah, I
And
do.
they refused to disclose that information, because how is it possible that on commissary alone, if you have a population of 1,000 or more in a prison, in prison, and let's say 75 to 80% of those people are consuming from commissary, that alone makes millions of dollars, including the phone calls. How is it possible that our prison system runs on a deficit? Where's all this money being spent at? And so all of that stuff needs to be relooked. And I agree with you. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's exactly what's happening within our prison system.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a we have
That's a complex issue
it's a it is a and it's a whole conversation on
on its
um,
own.
reentry reform,
Yeah.
our prison system decarcerating.
Yep.
I think when you came in, were there 29? Were there 29 prisons?
27 and
27.
17, 20, I'm sorry, 26 and 17 of them sat in Republican districts. And
Yeah.
remember, during that time, if we looked at the budget during that time, the most of the money was going to human services and the prison system. It was not
Yeah.
even going to education. And hopefully we need to reverse those numbers. I mean, that's the goal, to reverse those numbers. And I don't know if there's been progress on that front at the state level.
Well, I mean, they have been decarcerating and they have been releasing folks because of COVID. And I think we may be down to 24
Well,
correctional facilities.
yeah.
And I know that SCI Retreat was closed. So, and
Yeah, but
SCIC,
they opened Phoenix.
I mean, they closed Greater for the Open Phoenix,
And they
right?
opened Phoenix, and
Right.
that was costly. And the other thing is, Aisha, we don't talk about this, but this is a reality. Bail cash and holding people in prison because they can't pay their court fines. That is something I know that here in Philadelphia they're making reforms on that front, but we have to expedite this. No one. It is unconstitutional to hold someone in prison because they can't pay a court fine. It's ridiculous. And this has been practiced here in the city of Philadelphia since there's people under the Nutter administration. If people go in default and they're not paying their fines, what they do is it goes into a collection agency. And I think the city was in deficit for trying to collect these fines, millions and millions of dollars. And so, and they were incarcerating people, locking people up. They go before the judge. They couldn't prove, couldn't justify why they couldn't pay. They will hold these people in prison. Now, I know in the city of Philadelphia, at some point it was 8,000 people incarcerated. That number has come down, has decreased, which is a good thing on that front. But we have to still reform our prison system here in the city of Philadelphia. And I think we are moving towards that direction. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are. I mean, that that Philadelphia itself has been closing facilities, and that's a good thing. But unfortunately, again, this issue of COVID has popped up, and we're having inmates, succumbing, getting infected and succumbing to COVID. So, we have a problem with our criminal justice system. A lot of it has to do with the sentencing. A lot of it has to do with this issue of bail. The whole issue with oh God, with there was this whole issue around fines and tickets and people being locked up because they are in arrears. That's a cottage industry. That's what caused the folks in, I think, was it Indiana to to protest. That's what started the Black Lives movement. And
I think we're still living the Jim Crow days, Aisha.
Well, I mean, and it feels like that, I mean, there was something that Michelle Alexander did when she talked about the new Jim Crow, but I also think that we are, like this issue of, like you said, cash bail and fines and being incarcerated because you're poor, right? Yeah. So it's like a poverty piece, right? So it's not just about you getting a good lawyer and you having adequate representation, but now it's about, can you pay the fines? Like, what can, and so then it becomes an economic situation where you cannot get out of poverty because you have all these fines that you have to pay and the penalties because you're late.
And here's the other thing, and I want to have a conversation about this eventually, probably in another segment, Aisha, where prosecutors, they get promoted based on the convictions that they have. And we have to stop. That's something that we have to protest against and fight against, because that is a mentality and a system of within the prosecutor's office. If you get high profile cases, if you get X amount of convictions, you get promoted, you get a raise. people should not be getting raised and promoted based on the convictions that you have. Because what happens is, if that's the incentive for a prosecutor, then a prosecutor is not really thinking about fairness and giving people a fair trial. They want to get a conviction, whether you're innocent or not, to get that promotion and to meet that quota. And that is something that we have to address in this country and here in the city of Philadelphia. Now, you know that we have Carlos Vega running for district attorney. He just announced. He announced the other day that he's running against Larry Krasner. Great guy. I know Carlos Vega. But let's see how that goes. And he was one of the guys that Larry Krasner had fired when he had fired all those DAs that committed those injustices of prosecuting people that were innocent, if you will, because of the money, because of the promotion. So let's see how that works. Let's see how that pans out.
Well, I mean, is in how, like, what, 2023?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's announcing, yeah. and he's announcing we're going to bring Larry Krasner, Aisha, on our show. We're going to bring. We got a lineup for 2021.
I want to hear about his the reforms that he's put in place and the work that he's been doing to communicate with folks in the community about what the district attorney's office is doing, and also their the conviction integrity unit and what the conviction integrity unit is doing. And Pastor Holston, Gregory Holston is working. Yeah. So there are things that I think that we definitely can. The Senator Street is in the Zoom waiting room. Can somebody let him in?
Yeah.
I'm in.
Diego, engineer,
right.
can you?
Great.
Okay, great. Is he in?
Yeah, he's in. He's in.
Okay, good.
So,
Senator, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
And welcome.
Good.
So I was actually going to ask you a little bit about, we've been talking about the year in review. We were talking about the COVID vaccine, and could you talk a little bit about the COVID vaccine rollout for the state and for Philadelphia?
Well, the expectations we're going to the state one is doing the rollout for 66 counties in the state is being done by Dr. Levine and the state health department. The rollout for the vaccine in the city of Philadelphia is being done by the city health department and Dr. Farley. So that's one significant difference. But the basic principles through which they're supposed to set up the details are supposed to be set by the CDC and nationally consistent. So you'll start with healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, people who work in a hospital setting or a healthcare related setting, as broadly defined. Then you'll move to first responders and other essential workers, supermarket workers, bus drivers, those folks. And then after you've done first hospital workers, then non-hospital essential workers, then you'll start with the most vulnerable populations. That would include people who have asthma, people who are over the age of 60, I believe it is. People who have other respiratory compromised systems, certain complications with diabetes, hypertension, all are comorbidities, and then after you've done the hospital workers, you've done the essential workers, and then you've done the vulnerable population, then it will be offered to people in the general population.
I have a question, Senator. For people that can't, let's say people that don't have health insurance, and they need to get this vaccine, is it going to be offered? Free vaccines are going to be offered to the folks who do not have health insurance? How that's going to work out?
Well, there are going to be provisions made so that people without health insurance can get vaccinated. Whether that means that there will be some sort of special fund or it will just be offered for free, those are details that I don't have in front of me right now. But I do know that the prioritization won't be based on the ability to pay. Prioritization will be based on need. Okay. And so what'll happen is much of our senior population does have access to Medicare, and much of the vulnerable population is our seniors, and then the other groups, the healthcare workers. I would imagine most healthcare workers have health insurance, and then you have the other essential workers who are employed and may have some form of doctor employer sponsored healthcare. So I don't know what percentage of this will be paid for by private healthcare, or what percentage will be paid for by the government. But I do know that we're going to make sure that all the populations we just talked about are able to access the vaccine. And ultimately, as a government, it is our imperative to get as much of the as large a portion of the population vaccinated as possible. Because I think if we reach 75% of the population vaccinated, there won't be enough. There will be too much population for community transmission, and we can essentially render this a dead disease.
Okay.
So that's basically the herd immunity, right? That once we all get vaccinated, then the folks who aren't vaccinated, they'll be immune because the folks who are
Well,
vaccinated.
they'll be less likely to get it because there won't be community transmission, which means that they would have to be unlucky enough to sort of get struck by lightning and bump into one of the few people that have it. But right now, if you're under 75% immunity, then you can still have community transmission, which means the disease can move around the population until it finds an acceptable host.
Yeah, Aisha, we have about 2 minutes left. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to go until 10:05. So I just want to really ask very quickly about the timeline for the vaccines. Are Pennsylvanians getting vaccine currently now? And
Yes.
What's the time for that?
Yeah, we've already started vaccinating healthcare workers. I've seen video of healthcare. I know in my district, I was in communication with folks at Einstein. They already started vaccinating healthcare workers. So throughout the Commonwealth, there are healthcare workers who are being vaccinated now. So that process began probably over a week ago, maybe close to 2 weeks ago. And now we'll be moving in. And so when that group is done, and I don't know how long it'll take for that group to be done, then we'll move to the next group. I think that process for vaccinating the population will be expedited because they were starting to receive the Moderna vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at below negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And therefore, because of the storage requirements, there are less locations at which you can vaccinate people. The Moderna vaccine can be stored at room temperature, and therefore it can be placed in doctors' offices and pharmacies and become much more widely distributed.
Yeah. Okay. Aisha, anything else?
Aisha, you're muted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry.
Sharif, I think we can, Senator, we can bring you back to give you more ample time to discuss this, because this conversation has to continue and people need to get more educated about this and more informed. Thank you for taking time out to be with us today, to be on Voices of Change. In 2021, we're going to invite you to come back and give us an update as to how all this is rolling out here in the city of Philadelphia to the most vulnerable population. So I thank you for your time and thank you for being with us today.
I thank you as well. And look, thank you both for continuing to get this information, important, vital information out to the community. Stay safe.
Yeah.
God bless.
Stay safe.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, Aisha, stay safe.
All right. So Leslie, I just want to say thank you so much for, having this conversation. I want to just share one thing really quickly, and that is something that one of my aunts got to show how much of me.
Look how wonderful.
And she got some for my siblings. So all of us have something to cherish. So, of course we cherish our memory, but this is something that is quite lovely. So,
yeah.
And then also bad things happen in Philadelphia.
Well, Aisha, you're wonderful. Love your intellect and your spirit always. So thank you for what you do always. And we'll see you next time. We're going to plan for 2021. Good stuff is coming.
Definitely. We're going to have to plan our shows out and keep people interested and engaged and excited about Voices of Change.
Absolutely. All right, Aisha. Thank you. Have a great day. Happy holidays.